The church bells fell silent as Eliza stood frozen, her father's words hanging in the air between them. "Your groom's not coming." 4 words that shattered everything. She felt his hand still gripping the zipper of her wedding dress, the same hands that had once pushed her on swings and wiped away childhood tears. Now they steadied her as her world collapsed. If you're feeling the weight of this moment already, please hit that like button and subscribe to join our storytelling community. Your support helps bring more stories like Eliza's to life. Eliza Matthews had always been the girl with the plan. At 32, she had meticulously mapped out every detail of her life, from her career as a pediatric nurse to the exact shade of ivory for her wedding dress. The dress now hung perfectly on her frame as she stood in the small antechamber of St. Mary's Church, where generations of her family had married before her. Her father, Robert Matthews, had raised her alone since she was 8, when her mother walked out on them without explanation. He'd learned to braid hair, attended dance recitals, and somehow managed to guide his daughter through the turbulent waters of adolescence. Now, at 61, his weathered hands trembled slightly as he helped with the final touches of her bridal ensemble. "Almost done, Lizzie," he said, using the childhood nickname that only he was allowed to use. His fingers worked the delicate zipper of her gown with surprising dexterity for a man who had spent 40 years as a construction foreman. Eliza smiled at her reflection, hardly able to believe the day had finally arrived. After 3 years with James, she was about to become Mrs. James Harrington. The thought sent butterflies swirling through her stomach. "You look just like your mother," Robert said softly, his voice catching. It was one of the few times he ever mentioned Caroline, the woman who had left them both. "I hope that's a compliment," Eliza replied with a nervous laugh. "The highest," he assured her, placing his hands on her shoulders. Their eyes met in the mirror, the same shade of hazel, the same determination. The moment was interrupted by a sharp knock. Robert opened the door to find Eliza's maid of honor, Tasha, standing there with an ashen face. "Mr. Matthews, can I speak with you?" "Outside?" Tasha's voice was tight, controlled, but her eyes betrayed panic. "What is it?" Eliza asked, turning around. "Is something wrong with the flowers? The cake?" "Everything's fine, honey," Tasha said unconvincingly. "Just a small logistical issue." Robert squeezed his daughter's hand. "I'll be right back." The door closed behind them, but Eliza could hear the urgent whispers in the hallway. She moved closer, her heart beginning to race. "He called 10 minutes ago," Tasha was saying. "He's not coming. Said he couldn't go through with it." "What do you mean he's not coming?" Robert's voice rose. 300 people are sitting out there," he said. Tasha's voice broke. "He said he's been seeing someone else. 4 months. He's with her now." The silence that followed was deafening. Eliza stepped back from the door, her legs suddenly unsteady. This couldn't be happening. Not to her. Not with James. They had plans, a honeymoon in Bali, a house in the suburbs, children's names picked out. The door opened slowly, and her father stepped back in, his face a mask of controlled fury and heartbreak. Tasha remained outside, unable to face her friend. "Dad?" Eliza whispered, already knowing. Robert crossed the room and took his daughter's hands in his. He'd never been one to sugarcoat difficult truths. "Lizzie, I need to tell you something." He turned her gently, his hands moving to the zipper of her dress as if to secure it one last time. As he did, he leaned forward and whispered the words that would change everything, "Your groom's not coming." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Eliza gripped her father's arm to steady herself. "What?" she managed, her voice barely audible. "James called. He's..." Robert couldn't finish the sentence. "He's what, Dad?" Eliza demanded, her shock quickly giving way to anger. "He's with someone else. He's not coming today." Eliza stared at her father, waiting for the punchline to this cruel joke. But there was only truth in his eyes, the same eyes that had watched over her for 24 years, that had never lied to her. "Everyone's out there," she said numbly. "Grandma flew in from Arizona. Your work friends drove 6 hours. None of that matters," Robert said firmly. "The only thing that matters is you." Eliza turned back to the mirror. The woman staring back at her looked like a stranger, beautiful, yes, but hollow-eyed with shock. 300 guests. Thousands of dollars. Years of planning. All for nothing. "What do I do now?" she asked, her voice small. Robert Matthews had faced many challenges in his life, losing his wife, raising a daughter alone, battling cancer 2 years ago, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Yet as he looked at his daughter, he knew exactly what to say. "Now," he said, straightening his shoulders, "we decide what happens next. Together. Like we always have." The next hour passed in a blur. Tasha and the bridesmaids formed a protective circle around Eliza as Robert went to address the waiting guests. Standing at the altar where his daughter should have been exchanging vows, he explained the situation with as much dignity as he could muster. "My daughter will not be getting married today," he announced, his voice steady despite the murmurs that rippled through the church. "But if you'll all join us at the reception venue, we're going to have a celebration anyway. A celebration of family, of friendship, and of dodging what would have been a terrible mistake." A surprised laugh broke the tension, followed by applause. Robert had always been respected in their community, and now that respect transformed into something deeper, admiration for a father standing firmly beside his daughter in her darkest hour. Back in the antechamber, Eliza made a decision. "I'm going to the reception," she announced to her stunned bridesmaids. "Are you sure?" Tasha asked, squeezing her hand. "No one would blame you if you wanted to hide under the covers for a week." "I'm sure," Eliza said, wiping away the last of her tears. "Everything is paid for. The band, the food, the open bar. And I refuse to let James take this day from me too." She looked down at her wedding dress, the dress she had spent months searching for, the dress her father had just zipped up with such care. "But I'm not wearing this." 30 minutes later, Eliza walked into the grand ballroom of the Westfield Hotel wearing a red cocktail dress that Tasha had worn to the rehearsal dinner. Her hair was still in its elegant updo, but she had wiped away the bridal makeup and replaced it with something bolder, fiercer. The room fell silent as she entered, all eyes turning to the bride who wasn't a bride anymore. For a moment, Eliza faltered, the weight of 300 sympathetic gazes almost too much to bear. Then she felt her father's hand on her back, solid and reassuring. "Head up," he whispered, the same thing he'd told her before her first day of school, before her driving test, before her nursing board exams. Eliza lifted her chin and walked to the center of the dance floor. The band, unsure what to play, waited for a cue. "I want to thank you all for coming," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "This isn't the celebration I planned, but I'm grateful you're here anyway. So please, eat the food, drink the champagne, and dance. Consider this not a wedding reception, but a party celebrating new beginnings." She turned to the band. "Play something we can dance to. Something fun." As the first notes of "I Will Survive" filled the room, Robert Matthews stepped forward and took his daughter's hand. They had never had a father-daughter dance at her wedding, but this was better, a dance that said they would get through this, just as they had gotten through everything else. Others joined them on the dance floor, Tasha and the bridesmaids, Eliza's grandmother, colleagues from the hospital. The room that had been prepared for romance became a space for something else, resilience. Later that night, after most of the guests had gone home, Eliza sat at a table with her father, both of them exhausted but somehow lighter. "You know what's strange," she said, twirling an empty champagne flute between her fingers. "I keep thinking about Mom." Robert stiffened slightly. Caroline was rarely a topic of conversation between them. "What about her?" he asked carefully. I always wondered how someone could just walk away from their life, from their family. It seemed so incomprehensible. Eliza looked up at her father. But today, James walked away too. And I'm starting to think maybe it's not about the person being left. Maybe some people just aren't brave enough to stay when things get real. Robert was silent for a long moment. Your mother wasn't brave, he finally said. But she missed out on seeing the amazing woman you've become. That's her loss. And it will be James's loss too. How did you do it, Dad? Eliza asked. How did you keep going after she left? Robert smiled, the lines around his eyes deepening. I had you. You were this little person who needed me to be okay, so I had to be okay. Some days I was just pretending, but eventually, the pretending became real. He reached across the table and took her hand. And you'll be okay too, Lizzie. Not today, maybe not tomorrow. But you will be. Eliza squeezed his hand, knowing he was right. She would be okay, because she had learned resilience from the best teacher, a single dad who had never given up, who had zipped up her wedding dress and then helped her find the strength to face the day when everything fell apart. 6 months later, Eliza stood in the doorway of her new apartment, surveying the boxes still waiting to be unpacked. After the non-wedding, she had made changes, a new job at a different hospital, a new place to live, even a new haircut that made her feel like a different person. The doorbell rang, and she opened it to find her father standing there with a housewarming gift. It's not much, he said, handing her the wrapped package. Just something I thought you might need. Eliza unwrapped it to find a toolbox, small but complete with all the essentials. So you can hang your own pictures, fix your own leaky faucets, Robert explained. Not that I won't come running whenever you call, but I need to know I can do things on my own, Eliza finished for him. Thank you, Dad. They spent the afternoon unpacking, Robert hanging shelves while Eliza arranged her books and photographs. There were no pictures of James, but plenty of her and her father, at her nursing school graduation, on hiking trips, at Christmas celebrations over the years. As evening approached, they ordered pizza and sat on her new couch, surrounded by half-empty boxes. I got a call today, Eliza said casually, taking a bite of pizza. From James. Robert set down his slice, instantly alert. What did he want? To apologize. To explain. She shrugged. Apparently his new relationship didn't work out. He wanted to know if we could talk. And what did you say? Robert asked, trying to keep his voice neutral. Eliza smiled. I told him I was busy unpacking my new life, and I didn't have room for him in it. Pride shone in Robert's eyes. That's my girl. You know, Eliza said thoughtfully, that day, when you whispered that the groom wasn't coming, it felt like the end of everything. But it wasn't. It was just the end of one chapter. And the beginning of a better one, Robert added. Eliza nodded, looking around at her new space, a place that was entirely hers, filled with possibilities she hadn't imagined 6 months ago. I've been thinking about what you said at the reception, Robert said. About new beginnings. What about it? I've been seeing someone, he admitted, looking slightly embarrassed. Margaret from my book club. We've been having coffee after meetings for a few months now. Eliza's eyebrows shot up. Her father hadn't dated anyone seriously since her mother left. Dad. That's wonderful. Why didn't you tell me sooner? It didn't seem right, when you were going through so much. That's ridiculous, Eliza said firmly. Your happiness isn't dependent on mine. We both deserve good things. Robert smiled, relieved. She wants to meet you. If you're ready for that. I'd love to meet her, Eliza said sincerely. Bring her to Sunday dinner next week. As they continued their meal, Eliza felt a sense of peace settle over her. The pain of James's betrayal hadn't disappeared entirely, but it had transformed into something else, wisdom, perhaps, or a deeper understanding of herself and what she truly wanted from life. She thought about the moment in the church antechamber, her father's hand steady on her zipper, his voice breaking as he delivered the news that had broken her heart. That moment had felt like an ending, but sitting here now, she recognized it for what it truly was, the moment her father had once again shown her how to be brave in the face of heartbreak, how to stand tall when everything was falling apart. Someday, she might wear another wedding dress. Someday, she might trust another man enough to build a life with him. But she would never again mistake a perfect plan for a perfect life, or confuse a wedding with a marriage. For now, she was content with this new beginning, an apartment of her own, a job she loved, and the knowledge that whatever came next, she wouldn't face it alone. She had her father, who had taught her the most important lesson of all: sometimes the most beautiful stories begin when the original plan falls apart. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more emotional journeys that remind us of the power of family, resilience, and new beginnings. Share in the comments if you've ever had a moment when what seemed like an ending became the start of something better. Your stories matter to this community, and we'd love to hear them.